you so much. Thank you so much, Carolyn and Kevin, for the beautiful, beautiful music you gave us this morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our online service for the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. Welcome from the comfort of your homes, from wherever you are and however you are feeling this morning. Welcome into this virtual space together this morning. I hope you find a way to get comfortable, to get relaxed in your chairs, to let your body rest and relax, and to feel centered as we enter into this time of community and connection. I'm the Reverend Emily D. Tarbert, and I'm speaking to you live from my apartment here in Marble Hill, Manhattan, thinking of all of you in Staten Island, but also around the country as we have people joining us from Florida, possibly from Seattle, and from other places across the country. It is so wonderful to be with all of you this morning. I start with an opening reading. Words by Rainer Maria Rilke, translated by Anita Barrows and Joanna Macy. You, darkness of whom I am born. I love you more than the flame that limits the world to the circle it illuminates and excludes all the rest. But the darkness embraces everything. Shapes and shadows, creatures and me, people and nations just as they are. It lets me imagine a great presence stirring beside me. I believe in the night. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our service. I now invite Ruth Benson to say our chalice lighting this morning.
Down.
In the search for truth and the spirit of love, we unite for worship and fellowship.
As has been the case since June, we continue the spirit of our chalice lighting. As an extension of this lighting, I want to take a moment of silence to light candles for the names of those who've been recently affected by police brutality. I cannot, and we cannot cover all of the names of those who have been affected, but these are a symbol of the few and most recent. We light a candle. For the life of Rodney Applewhite. For the life of Angelo Cromes. For the life of Sincere Pierce. May these lights be a symbol of our commitment to continue the work of racial justice and proclaim for everyone that Black Lives Matter. I now invite Carolyn and Kevin to sing with all of us our opening hymn, People Look East. Please give me a moment as I now raise our hymn lyrics for you all to join along.
I think I'm gonna do the whole.
People look east, the time is near of the coming of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. Pharaohs be glad through earth is bare, one more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today, love is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim, on the light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright the sun and moon together. People look east and sing today, love the star is on the way.
I'll invite again Ruth Benson to share our reading this morning.
This poem is called And You Held Me by Janet Morley. And you held me, and there were no words, and there was no time, and you held me, and there was only wanting, and being held, and being filled with wanting, and I was nothing but letting go, and being held, and there were no words, and there needed to be no words. There was no terror, only stillness, and I was wanting nothing, and it was fullness, and it was like aching for God, and it was touch and warmth and darkness and no time and no words, and we flowed and I flowed, and I was not empty, and I was given up to the dark, and in the darkness I was not lost, and the wanting was like fullness, and I could hardly hold it, and I was held, and you were dark and warm and without time and without words, and you held me.
Powerful poem by Janet Morley. Long, long ago, in a galaxy not far, far away, there was a battle between good and evil. And the good was named light, and the evil was named darkness, and ever since Western culture began this kind of binary thinking, lightness and darkness have been carried these connotations across centuries, across millennia and cultures and mediums. This framework of language grew so pervasive, it's hard to even notice it happening in conversation or happening around us. It's just assumed when you say the light, it means good. When you say the darkness, it means evil. How many times have I used this language from this pulpit? Language and stories like, we need to find the light of hope in the dark, right? I've spoken like that. I've not really thought about it. But the real life implications are pretty obvious to notice. When dark or black is marked bad, that directly affects people of color and how they live in our society every day. And it's everything and everywhere, from beauty products on the shelf to who we trust in the storylines of movies, who's the reliable narrator in the movies we watch or listen to, in the media we consume, or to which people we assign criminality because of their skin tone. And I know that even for myself, that I've kind of excused away this language over time, insisting, oh, it's a metaphor. It's not meant to be taken literally. And I especially see that metaphor across different faiths and in the religious world when we talk about lightness and darkness. And it happens pervasively across Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and more. Talking about dark is bad and light is good. And, it's just metaphorical darkness, but that wasn't always the case across different faiths, but especially in America and especially in Christianity. And I learned that actually from all of you. from the Black Lives Matter Committee reading of Stamped from the Beginning, which we did, I think, 2 years ago together with Debbie and Paige, right? In reading the book Stamped from the Beginning, we talk a little bit about Cotton Mather, a Puritan minister who was born in 1663, and he often talked about wanting to turn the souls of enslaved Africans white. Literally, whitewashing. And other ministers across the United States have used this similar language. Language that would continue to be used to punish people of color for no other reason than simply their skin tone. In fact, even the namesake Stamped from the Beginning comes from a piece of legislation which said because of the darkness of enslaved African skin, that's why they weren't quote-unquote equal rights or same human nature or insert thing here, right? The metaphor and the use of dark as bad and light or white as good seems to be everywhere and creeps up so often. You might even hear it in talking about the holidays. And yet the irony for me is that across faiths, darkness is seen as something holy and valuable. Even when we think about these winter holidays. Almost every winter holiday that happens, I mean, I'm talking from November 15th to January 6th, almost all of them happen at night. Almost all of them happen. And with this awe towards the night, a sacred point of night. Think about Diwali and the Festival of Lights that happen in November for Hindus. That happens at night. The winter solstice, the longest night of the year. The Christmas story, Oh Holy Night. And the Hanukkah celebration of 8 nights. And think about the songs that we sing. Oh Holy Night exists at these times. It is the dark that is the backdrop of these stories that bring them to light and give them the sense of the presence of the holy, of stillness and peace, of warmth and joy and light. And yet those aren't the stories we often hear. For example, I think about, because it is the closest holiday to us right now, the Jewish Hanukkah story. The Maccabees, a small army of Jewish soldiers, were able to reclaim the Temple of Jerusalem for King Antiochus to continue the legacy and practice of the Jewish people in Judea. When they took back the temple, they began the process of cleaning and rededicating the temple and reconsecrating it to the Jewish faith as a temple of God. But the oil that they had that would light the eternal flame, which is a flame that goes on and is lit indefinitely in the temple, they only had to light one night. So someone went to get more oil, knowing it would take 8 days and knowing that there may not be light in the temple for 8 days, and yet the oil that was only supposed to last one night ended up lasting 8 nights. Therefore, the flame of faith could stay alive while they rededicated the temple. So I imagine the dark of night in a temple, save for one light, save for one flame. Imagine the peace of the darkness of that room. Imagine the quiet and the calm. Imagine the ways it would help them as they were cleaning, as they were washing the floors and sitting in the stillness of that moment. It made it possible, the nighttime made it possible to wash the temple, to pray, to practice the faith that had been so long denied to the Jewish people in Judea. There is something magical about the darkness of this story. And this isn't the only time in the Torah where darkness is referenced as holy. Yes, there are plenty of psalms and stories about God being the light in the darkness, or the burning bush, or moments where God shows up as a light in the dark, but there's also a lot of God being the darkness. Take this passage from Psalm 18:11. Quote, God made darkness God's covering, God's canopy around God, thick clouds dark with water. God made darkness God's covering. Think about the creation story. The fact that the whole of life comes from the darkness, comes from this rich, mysterious source of life that is dark. Or think about the story of Jacob wrestling the angel, or well, wrestling God, right? In the story of Jacob, God is dark. God is the dark, shadowy presence that begins the transformation of faith where Jacob becomes Israel. I'm just focusing now on Jewish stories, but across these stories, it's not hard to see the connections of the presence of the holy as being both light and as being dark. And the same is true of other faiths and other winter holidays. For indigenous or pagan communities, look at the winter solstice. It is the longest night of the year. Yes, they are celebrating and hoping for the return of the sun, and yet they're also celebrating, acknowledging the presence and the holiness of the dark of night. Or the Christmas story. Everything about the Christian Christmas story happens at night, with the stars, in the darkness of the womb, in the darkness of a manger. Places that we understand, or at least in the stories are told, wrapped in swaddling clothes, as warm, as peaceful, as still, as holy. And last but certainly not least, the holiday of Kwanzaa. A holiday specifically made to reclaim African roots, celebrated by African Americans across the United States. The celebration of Kwanzaa also reclaims the power, beauty, and holiness of blackness and of darkness. The colors of Kwanzaa are the colors of the Pan-African flag, red, black, and green, and these are the colors that you find in the candles of the Kinara. The black color symbolizes the African people, the red for their past and their struggle, and the green for the future and the hope that comes. The black color is seen and symbolizes the African people, the earth, the source of life. It represents hope and creativity. In all of the holidays, meals, the songs and the dances and everything that happens at night. We see through these experiences how darkness is something to be celebrated. And beyond the holidays, just think of it when it comes to your own personal experiences in your life, or maybe of the upcoming holidays coming here. Imagine yourself at home with the people you love. In these winter days, it is at night when we eat and we share meals together. It is at night when we tell the stories. It is in the darkness where we sleep in our beds, and in the dark we are loved and we are held, and there is warmth, the warmth of our blankets. In the dark there is warmth in the womb. In the dark there lies mystery and stillness. In the dark lies a unique power of owning ourselves and being at peace with ourselves. The dark is holy. The dark is powerful and peaceful. The dark is joyful. I return to some of the words of our beautiful poet, Janet Morley. And I was given up to the dark. And in the darkness I was not lost. And in the waiting was like fullness. And I could hardly hold it. And I was held, and you were dark and warm and without time and without words. And you held me. As a person of faith, and especially as a minister, I'm called to continually nuance and use more language in ways that can express the fullness of the human experience. I'm called to name all the richness of the ways we can describe the presence of love, community, and the holy mysteries of life. And that includes rejecting the false binaries of language that are so hard to catch ourselves using, that are so pervasive in our culture, including this old standard of light and darkness. And I'm inspired because of the work of colleagues who've gone before me. I'm grateful for the words of my wife, Reverend Ashley D. Tarbert, who preached a darkness, beautiful sermon when she was in seminary, and who taught about the passage from the Bible, I am black and beautiful. And I'm also inspired by an incredible UU minister who the UU denomination is sad to have lost last week. Reverend Hope Johnson has been a presence and a light to our faith, and was a minister until she recently passed, who advocated for anti-racism, who advocated for multiculturalism, and who advocated for herself as a minister as tied to her Jamaican roots, as well as strong in her identity as a Unitarian Universalist minister. She reflects on the shifting of our understanding of religious language and darkness, and I end with her words today. She says, quote, "I believe there are many different ways to fight for what's right. So friends, I'm not trying to get the world to change its vocabulary. The words light and dark and the typical use of them have been around, quote, forever. We can't change that now, but we can always try to improve our use of this language. I challenge myself and others to become more conscious than ever of my use of the words dark and light, and I promise to find a better balance. Will you join me? Yours, Hope." Hope, I join you in trying to find a balance, of trying to be more aware of the words that I use and speak. And I encourage all of us to do so as well. And the next time you light a candle at the upcoming holidays, think about the beauty of the light and the dark, how both create the meaningful nights that make our holidays so special. May we find and cultivate the love, the joy, the warmth of darkness anytime our spirit needs it. And may we continue to challenge and build our words so that we can be as inclusive as the beauty of the beloved community itself. May it be so, and amen. Everyone, as always, for being with us today. Now is a time for our offertory. As you know, in our congregation, we could not exist without the gifts of your support, especially when I think about this year. This year, we have drastically cut our budget to match with the realities of coronavirus. We are doing financially very well, and I'm very grateful for the work of our treasurer, who has reported a great balanced budget in our book. But we have cut our budget so much because of the realities of COVID and not being able to rent our space. We are really living based on your donations this year. And it's been incredible what we've been able to do, even with those downfalls. We currently don't have an administrator. As you know, we're not using our building as much. We're grateful for the staff that we do have. We're grateful for the ways we are thriving, and we know it's because of you. So I encourage you, if you can, please donate. If you've already been pledging, that's great. If you want to keep pledging, please do. And please give as generously as you can to our community, knowing that it's all because of you that we're able to do what we do. As you'll see, if you have a PayPal or Venmo, please go to our charity page. If you're paying with a card, go to our giving page, and you can always mail checks. I now invite Kevin Clark to sing our offertory, "Joyful is the Dark." Thank you, Kevin.
Joyful is the dark, holy hidden God. Rolling clouds of night beyond all naming, majesty in darkness, energy of love. Word in flesh the mystery proclaiming. Joyful is the dark, spirit of the deep, winging wildly o'er the world's creation, silken sheen of midnight, plumage black and bright, sweeping with the beauty of a raven. Joyful is the dark, depth of love divine, roaring, looming thunder cloud of glory, holy haunting beauty, living, loving God. Hallelujah, sing and tell the story.
So much, Kevin. Kevin sang a song again. I'm amazed by the treasures of our UU hymnal. Joyful is the dark, which actually is in reference to kind of the Christian story and the arc of both Christmas and Easter, and showing, instead of the usual things that happen within that tradition of lightness being God, showing the darkness as the holy. So thank you for singing that beautiful music today, Kevin. And now is a time in our service for joys and sorrows this morning. As you know, it is our community that we're able to connect and share with. I invite you at this time, if you feel so moved, to chat in the chat box. You can, at this time, share as a community. Raise your hand, unmute yourselves, share what's on your heart. We are here to listen to you and to hear what's going on in your life. Please join us for this hymn, How Sweet the Darkness.
When windows that are black and cold are lit anew with fires of gold, when dusk in quiet shall descend, and darkness come once more a friend, when wings pursue their proper flight, and bring not terror but delight, when clouds are innocent again, and hide no storms of deadly rain, and when the sky is swept of wars, and keeps but gentle moon and stars, that peaceful sky, harmless air, how sweet the darkness there.
So I now invite Ruth Benson to extinguish our chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. For these we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
So I end with these words. These words are actually in yet another hymn about darkness in our hymnal, but I can't help but end with them as a blessing for however ways we experience the darkness. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may perceive more clearly, and when my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me. May it be so, and amen.